witnessing the beginning of something truly insane in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari Red. It still feels like a glitch in the Matrix, but here we are. Everyone expected this move to shake things up, but nobody, absolutely nobody, expected him to start making waves this quickly. From the moment he first put his hands on the SF25 steering wheel, Hamilton has done what Hamilton always does. Come in, adapt at light speed, and start making his teammates question their life choices. And the first victim of this new era? Charles Leclerc. Ferrari's golden boy, the Monegasque sensation, the guy they built their entire future around. Suddenly, he's looking over his shoulder, and for the first time in his Ferrari career, he might not like what he sees. Because here's the thing, Hamilton isn't just adapting. He's evolving, mutating, assimilating the very DNA of Ferrari's driving philosophy and bending it to his will faster than anyone thought possible. He's already matching Leclerc in crucial areas, applying Ferrari's own aggressive braking and throttle overlap technique that Leclerc mastered over years of driving their cars. Hamilton has only been in the seat for a few days, and yet Ferrari's telemetry already shows that he's pulling off this technique in some of the trickiest corners. In places like turn 10, he's already gaining time on Leclerc. That's not adaptation, that's a warning shot. Leclerc, who has spent years perfecting his craft to match Ferrari's quirks, is now watching in real time as Hamilton takes that knowledge and uses it against him. And this raises one massive question. If Leclerc was Ferrari's golden child before, what happens if Hamilton starts beating him? Ferrari has been Leclerc's team for years. Everything, the development direction, the strategy, as tragic as it is, the entire future of Scuderia has been based around his growth. He was supposed to be the next big thing, the guy who would take Ferrari back to championship glory. But what happens if suddenly he's not the best Ferrari driver anymore? Because if Hamilton keeps this up, Ferrari might be forced to rethink everything. They didn't bring a 7-time world champion into the team just for fun. They didn't sign him to play second fiddle. Hamilton came to win, and if Leclerc isn't careful, he might find himself in the exact same nightmare Bottas lived through at Mercedes. This could either be a dream scenario for Ferrari or an absolute catastrophe. If handled properly, the insane competitive fire between Hamilton and Leclerc could push Ferrari to new heights, turning them into Red Bull's worst nightmare. If handled poorly, it could rip the team apart from the inside. And let's be real here. When has Ferrari ever handled an internal driver rivalry well? You'd think they'd have learned after Schumacher and Barrichello, Alonso and Massa, Vettel and Leclerc and Sainz. But no. Ferrari always finds a way to make things dramatically worse. And let's not forget, this car, the SF25, was built with a completely new philosophy. Ferrari went all in, taking inspiration from Red Bull and McLaren, going for a more aggressive aerodynamic package, front pull rod suspension, and an entirely new power delivery concept. On paper, it should be a genuine title contender. But reality doesn't always match the blueprint. The SF25 has serious stability issues at the rear, especially in longer corners. And guess what? Hamilton doesn't give a damn. While Leclerc is struggling to extract maximum performance from this new beast, Hamilton is already finding ways to work around the car's weaknesses. This is a problem. A massive, Ferrari-sized problem. If the SF25 demands a new driving style, Leclerc might take longer to adjust than Hamilton does. This is not the scenario Ferrari envisioned. They expected Hamilton to need time, a learning curve, some adaptation struggles. Instead, they got a guy who's already throwing down laps that make Leclerc sweat. And if this trend continues, Ferrari's entire internal structure might have to change. For years, Ferrari has built their team around Leclerc, making him their #1 driver, their future champion. But now, what happens if Hamilton starts outperforming him consistently? What if, 3 or 4 races into the season, Hamilton is Ferrari's best chance at a title? Does Ferrari ditch their years-long investment in Leclerc and go all in on Hamilton? Do they let the two fight freely and risk an all-out civil war inside the team? Or do they screw it up entirely, in classic Ferrari fashion, and find a way to sabotage both drivers at the same time? One thing is for certain. Hamilton did not leave Mercedes to play second driver. He did not come to Ferrari just to be another piece in their puzzle. He came to win, to prove he's still one of the greatest drivers in the history of the sport. And if Leclerc isn't careful, He could wake up one morning and realize that Ferrari isn't his team anymore. This 2025 season is already shaping up to be a bloodbath. Ferrari has the potential to fight for the title. Red Bull is still the team to beat, but McLaren and Mercedes are getting stronger, ready to jump in at the first sign of weakness. But what if Ferrari's biggest battle isn't against Red Bull, but within their own garage? What if this season turns into a full-scale war for control between Leclerc and Hamilton? What if, by mid-season, the headlines aren't about Red Bull domination, but about Ferrari tearing itself apart from the inside? And the biggest question of all, if Hamilton keeps pushing the SF25 to new levels, can Leclerc hold his ground? Or is Ferrari about to go through a power shift that nobody saw coming? This is just the beginning. The battle lines are being drawn. The gloves are coming off. If Leclerc thought 2025 was going to be the year where he finally cemented his status as Ferrari's undisputed leader, he might want to start re-evaluating his life choices. Because the way things are shaping up, Hamilton isn't here to be anyone's sidekick. We've seen this before, haven't we? A big-name driver comes into a team, and suddenly, the established star finds himself in a very awkward, very uncomfortable situation. It happened to Vettel when Leclerc arrived. It happened to Alonso when Hamilton walked into McLaren in 2007, and we all know how that ended. The problem for Leclerc isn't just that Hamilton is fast, it's that he's adapting at an inhuman speed. The same guy who spent 12 years driving Mercedes machinery, completely different in philosophy from Ferrari's, is now already matching Leclerc's telemetry, already experimenting with techniques that should take months to master. That's not normal. That's not how this is supposed to work. And that is exactly why Ferrari might be forced to make a very difficult decision sooner rather than later. Let's get one thing straight. Ferrari does not do equal driver status. They never have. Someone always ends up being the golden boy, the one who gets the strategic priority, the pit stop preference, the entire focus of the team. The question is, what happens if Hamilton keeps outperforming Leclerc? If we know anything about Ferrari, they will eventually have to choose. And if we get halfway through the season and Hamilton is the one delivering results, are they really going to keep treating Leclerc as the leader? Or will Ferrari do what Ferrari always does and throw their loyalty out the window the second they smell a better opportunity? Think about it. This team turned on Vettel the moment Leclerc started delivering results. They threw Alonso to the wolves the second they decided to go all in on a new direction. If Hamilton starts putting in the performances, Leclerc could go from future world champion to support driver before he even knows what hit him. This wouldn't just be bad for Leclerc, it would be a total mental disaster. The guy has spent years dealing with Ferrari's incompetence, dragging underperforming cars to ridiculous results, and now that they might finally have a contender, he has to deal with Hamilton coming in and taking over? That would be soul-crushing. And if you think Leclerc is just going to roll over and accept it, you clearly haven't been paying attention. If this turns into an internal war, Leclerc will fight tooth and nail to keep his place at the top. The problem is, fighting Hamilton isn't like fighting Carlos Sainz. Hamilton doesn't crack under pressure. Hamilton doesn't get rattled by team politics. Hamilton has played this game before and won. Leclerc might be a generational talent, but Hamilton is a generational nightmare for anyone trying to hold on to their team leadership. And the funniest part? This isn't even Ferrari's biggest problem. Because while Hamilton and Leclerc are about to turn the Ferrari garage into a nuclear war zone, Red Bull is still out there, completely unfazed, probably laughing their asses off at all of this. While Ferrari is dealing with internal chaos, power struggles, and dramatic driver mind games, Max Verstappen is somewhere sipping a Red Bull, wondering who his next victim will be. Because let's be real, Ferrari has a championship caliber car, but they're still Ferrari. The strategy team still exists. The pit crew is still one step away from calling in Leclerc for an emergency tire change on the final lap for no reason. They might have two of the best drivers in the world, but if they don't get their act together, none of this will matter. And what about Mercedes? What about McLaren? You think Toto Wolff is just going to sit back and watch Ferrari finally get their shit together? You think Lando Norris is going to let Ferrari steal all the headlines without a fight? No, no, no. This season isn't just about Ferrari versus Red Bull. This is about a full-scale, no-holds-barred war for dominance. And the most terrifying part for Ferrari, the The biggest threat to their success might not even be Red Bull, or Mercedes, or McLaren. It might be themselves. Because if they don't figure out how to handle this internal power struggle, if they don't find a way to balance Hamilton and Leclerc, if they let this rivalry spiral out of control, then this season won't be about Ferrari winning championships. It will be about Ferrari self-destructing in the most spectacular way possible. And at this point, let's be honest, at this point, it's almost poetic. Ferrari finally has all the ingredients to take the fight to Red Bull, to break the cycle of disappointment, to return to the glory days of Schumacher and dominate the grid once again. But instead of focusing purely on that goal, they might just end up tripping over their own feet before they even reach the finish line. Because, let's be real, this situation is a ticking time bomb. On one side, you've got Leclerc, the man Ferrari has spent years building their team around. He's endured the worst of Ferrari's strategic nightmares, he's dragged terrible cars to podiums, and has been the one constant hope in a team that constantly finds new ways to disappoint him. And now, out of nowhere, comes Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, master of psychological warfare, one of the most adaptable drivers in the history of the sport. A man who has never walked into a team and settled for second place. A man who doesn't just win races, he takes control. He bends teams to his will. He makes them his. This isn't just about who's faster over one lap, or who's better at racecraft. This is about power, influence, control over Ferrari's future. Let's not kid ourselves. Ferrari will have to make a choice. They might pretend for a while that this is a friendly partnership, a harmonious super team, but eventually, the numbers will force their hand. And when that moment comes, will they side with the driver they've nurtured for years, or the one who might actually bring them a championship? The terrifying truth is that Ferrari's biggest strength this season, having two of the best drivers on the grid, could also be its biggest weakness. If they handle the situation well, if they find a way to balance the tension, to fuel the competition without letting it spiral into chaos, then they could have the most lethal driver lineup in Formula One. But if they screw this up, if egos start clashing, if strategy starts favoring one driver over the other, if the power struggle inside Maranello gets ugly, then this could go down as the most self-destructive season in Ferrari's history. And the worst part, they don't have time to get this wrong. Because Red Bull isn't going to wait around while Ferrari figures out their internal mess. Verstappen is ready. Red Bull is ready. If Ferrari doesn't hit the ground running in 2025, they could find themselves so wrapped up in their own drama that they lose sight of the real enemy. And then, what happens? Hamilton and Leclerc fight each other so hard that they hand Verstappen an easy fourth title? Ferrari needs to ask itself one very simple question. What's more important? Winning a championship or proving a point? Because if they don't choose the first option, then it won't matter how good the SF25 is. It won't matter if Hamilton and Leclerc are two of the best drivers on the grid. It won't matter if they have all the potential in the world to dethrone Red Bull. None of it will mean a damn thing if they let this rivalry consume them. And based on Ferrari's track record, you'd be a fool to bet against the chaos. So buckle up. This isn't just going to be a season.